As some of you know, I'm Ed Leonard. I'm on the Adult Education Committee, and it's my privilege and honor to welcome you all this morning for another adult forum for December. It's also my pleasure to introduce Mike Bonanno, who's going to be leading us in this discussion this morning. Mike's been a member of St. John for about 5 years. He's been part of the wonderful choir that we hear every Sunday. And he has an interesting lecture today talking about the music related to Christmas. So without any further ado, Mike.
Thanks, Ed. I'm going to talk about the Anglican Lessons and Carols service and a few interesting details about singing in church in general and Christmas carols. Talk a little bit about the other traditions that have gone into Christmas. As you probably know, Christmas is a syncretism of pagan and Christian customs. This was sometimes controversial. The Puritans were not convinced that was a good idea. But we're going to try to reconcile some of these things and talk about incarnational theology through our traditions. Tradition's a wonderful thing. Episcopalians have it in a big way. That's partly why Dan and I are here. We think it's consistent with our historic faith. We look back to the events and build on these things over the centuries. This season of the year is not the happiest time for everybody. It's a festive time, but it's also a bleak midwinter time. It's the shortest days of the year, and around here it rains. We're used to that. But I think so we're going to start with a song sung by our newest soprano, Susan Vanek, In the Bleak Midwinter. The poem was by Christina Rossetti, set to music by Harold Edwin Dark.
I would like to say about this piece that it is very common lessons and carols carol to be sung. And this particular setting was actually written for soloist and chorus. The first verse is soprano solo, the second verse is chorus, the third verse is tenor solo, and the fourth verse is chorus. But you're going to hear it all as a solo.
Stay
Carols was organized by Edward White Benson for use on Christmas Eve, 1880. Benson was later Archbishop of Canterbury. At the time of the first Lessons and Carols, he was Bishop of Truro in Cornwall. And to show how profundity evolves out of humble beginnings, Benson organized a 10 p.m. service in a temporary wooden shed, and a key purpose of the service was to keep men out of the bars on Christmas Eve. The first festival of King's College, Cambridge, the one we hear on BBC, or we don't, but it's traditionally been done on BBC, was in 1918, and it was a celebration after the end of the First World War. Eric Milner White, the dean of the college, organized that one. Because he thought, after experience as a chaplain in the military, he thought the Church of England needed more imaginative worship. 38 years later, after the first service and a world war, they still needed to keep men out of the taverns. The service generally begins with singing, a single choir voice singing Once in David's Royal City. Ours this year, Nick Strathy's daughters will sing that procession. And Nick's also going to play an original organ composition. In all his spare time, he's been able to write music. The choir will sing a number of different songs and anthems, carols. One of them, Adam Lay Bowman, is a 15th century British folk song. Relates the events in Genesis, the fall of man. In medieval theology, Adam was supposed to have remained in bonds with the other patriarchs in limbus patrum from the time of his death until Christ, 4,000 winters. So the song is Adam lay bound in a bond, 4,000 winters thought he not too long. And all was for an apple that he took, as the clerks find written in their book. The clerks, of course, are the clergy, and the book was the Bible, the Vulgate. It moves to the redemption through the birth of Jesus by Mary. Had the apple not taken been, never would Our Lady have been Heavenly Queen. And therefore, blessed be the time that the apple taken was. And it harks back to the Latin expression from Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine called the Felix Culpa. For God judged it better to bring good out of evil than not to permit evil to exist. And it ends with, as we say at the end of the reading, thanks be to God, Deo gratias. Now the choir is going to sing that little anthem as kind of a preview for Lessons and Carols. So singing in church is an interesting subject in itself. Jesus was a teacher, not a singer. In some cases, he seems very severe. In fact, this time of year we sing Ave Maria, partly because in the Catholic tradition, they find it easier to ask Mary to intercede with Jesus for us than to approach him personally. In the Gospels, there isn't any record of him singing any songs. Paul and Silas sing in prison, and then there was an earthquake. They had to restrain the jailer from taking his own life. I've been singing a long time, but I've never got that kind of reaction. I don't know if their singing was that bad. Even such a venerable saint as Dietrich Bonhoeffer thought that trained singers were an intrusion on spirituality and worship with their overdeveloped organs, quote. The church has always been a patron of the arts, but a bit suspicious of it. One of the ironies of ascetic Christianity is that monks who tried to renounce the world and its vanities became the sustainers of culture. They were scientific researchers, their industries made the monasteries wealthy, and they loaned money to aristocrats. They started universities and universal education, and they were musicians. Hymnody began in the monasteries, started as very simple devotions, but the monks wanted to separate themselves from the world. Somehow their personal devotions got incorporated into church music and into the liturgy. There were dramatic renderings of scenes from the Gospels that were set to music. Modal tonalities of chant developed into polyphonic music with many moving voices and harmonies. And the Passion plays and other liturgical dramas were the beginning of oratorios and cantatas like Bach's cantatas and the Messiah by Handel. Even opera developed out of these humble beginnings. Both Gregorian chant in the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox liturgy have their roots in Greek modal tonalities. If you attend an Orthodox church, besides having to stand through the whole service, you'll hear very ancient chanting. Psalms were chanted in the synagogues during the time of Jesus, and they've been adapted by the Jews from Greek modes. I have an interesting footnote that I found by Father Joseph Fessio, talking about the psalm tones that became Gregorian chant and developed into our musical tradition. I'll quote this. This is interesting, I think. Joseph Fessio, I began to think about the Psalms a few years back, and a very obvious idea suddenly struck me. Why it didn't come earlier, I don't know. But the fact is that the Psalms are songs. Every one of the 150 Psalms is meant to be sung, and was sung by the Jews. When this thought came to me, I immediately called a friend, a rabbi in San Francisco, who runs the Hebrew school, and I asked, do you sing the Psalms in your synagogue? He said, well, no, we recite them. Do you know what they sounded like when they were sung in the time of Jesus and the apostles? He said, no, but I don't know, but you can call this company upstate New York, and they publish Hebrew music, and they may know. So I called the company, and they said, we don't know either, but call 1-800-JUDAISM. So I did. I got an information center for Jewish traditions, and they didn't know. But they said, you can call this rabbi in Manhattan who also teaches music. He'll know. So I called the rabbi. We had a wonderful conversation. In the end, I said, I want to bring some focus to this. Can you tell me what it sounded like when Jesus and Mary sang the Psalms? He said, of course, Father. It sounded like Gregorian chant. You got it from us. I was somewhat amazed, so I called William Mark, a professor at Stanford University. I said, Bill, is this true? He said, yes, the psalm tones have their roots in ancient Jewish hymnody and psalmody. So if you sing the Psalms at Mass with Gregorian tones, you're as close as you can get to praying with Jesus and Mary. They sang the Psalms in tones that come down to us today as Gregorian chant. So we're a long way from Jesus to Christmas and to our Lessons and Carols concert. Many pre-Christian cultures in ancient Rome and Babylon also have rich traditions, and for the same reasons that we do. We need a sense of belonging in the world, feeling like we belong in the universe, and with our families and neighbors. Spirituality, pagans, was, unlike the monks, more earthy. And like us, they sometimes ate and drank too much at their festivities. But several prominent pagan customs have been incorporated in Christmas. In ancient Babylon, the feast of the son of Isis, goddess of nature, was celebrated on December 25th. Raucous partying and gift-giving were traditions in this feast. In Rome, the winter solstice was celebrated many years before the birth of Christ. The Romans called their winter holidays Saturnalia, honoring Saturn, the god of agriculture. They celebrated the renewal of light and the coming of the new year as Dies Natalis Solis Invictus, the birthday of the incomparable sun, again on December 21st. Carols evolved into Christian Christmas carols over the centuries in Europe. The first carols were pagan. They danced around stone circles. And in Rome, the tradition of mummers was born. Costume singers and dancers who traveled from house to house entertaining their neighbors. The resemblance to Christmas caroling is pretty evident. And we have in our midst Susan Vanek, who for many years was a member of the Madrigalia group, who won the Great Figgy Pudding Street Corner Caroling Contest. So I think that it's time for Susan to sing another song.
What is figgy pudding?
I don't have any food. What songs were sung by John Jacob Niles?
Christmas carols began to be sung by Christians pretty early in the Christian era. In AD 129, a Roman bishop said that a song called Angel's Hymn should be sung at Christmas in Rome. Another known Christmas hymn was written in 760 AD by Comas of Jerusalem for the Greek Orthodox Church. Many European composers began to write Christmas carols, but they were generally written and sung in Latin. And by the time of the Middle Ages, 1200s, most people had lost interest in them. They couldn't understand, couldn't sing along. St. Francis of Assisi changed this in 1223 when he started his nativity plays. People in the plays sang and told the story of Jesus' birth in the vernacular language. And new carols were arranged for these plays. They spread to France, Spain, Germany, and other European countries. In 350, Pope Julius I declared that Christ's birth would be celebrated on December 25th. Interestingly, this corresponds pretty well with the pagan feasts. Allegedly, he was trying to make it as painless as possible for the Romans to convert to Christianity, knowing that their feasts wouldn't be taken away from them. Given all the pagan syncretism that's incorporated into Christmas, it isn't surprising that there were Christians who questioned the legitimacy of all this. And by the time Oliver Cromwell came to power in England, the Puritans outlawed the celebration of Christmas and of singing Christmas carols. The carols survived only because people sang them in their homes. They were contraband culture until Victorian times, when William Sandys and Davis Gilbert collected old Christmas songs from English villages and published them. English laws suppressing the holiday, which had been enacted during the Puritan interregnum, were repealed in the latter part of the 17th century. This Puritan distaste for Christmas also spilled over into the American colonies. In New England, long before the ACLU got into the act, Christmas was illegal in many places. Christmas celebrations were culturally and legally suppressed because the Puritans found no scriptural authority for celebrating Christmas. There was too much pagan symbolism associated with it. And with the Catholic Church, of course, this is the Reformation era, so they weren't going to go along with that voluntarily. There were, of course, people who celebrated anyway, and Governor William Bradford had to reprimand the offenders. So tradition unites people, but the depth and diversity of tradition can lead to controversies. Finally, in this country, we take Christmas as part of our culture, and the laws against celebration of Christmas in New England were repealed in 1681. Now it's difficult to imagine a world without Christmas. The Incarnation is the core of our theology. Christ has come into the world as a human being in weakness and as a child. His life was powerless, and he's changed everything. The Christian perspective has changed everything from our views of the poor to the laws that govern our society. And it's quite amazing how God inhabits the customs of both the pagans and the Christians. He fulfills the meaning of the biblical tradition and of the kings who journeyed from Babylon. We ask you to come to the Lessons and Carols concert and let God into the darkest part of our year. Some things are better sung than said. So the choir will finish this with He is Born.